John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
All of us that's touched, we're woven into the fabric of the world, and we're meant to be as we are. We find Mary, we get her singing. They'll all come to us, and they'll be safe.
They won't be safe.
Less lonely then, and that's a start.
It's a start.
Hello, Neo.
Who are you?
I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected, and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here. The Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the 6th version. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to bits! Yeah! Kill you! You can't make me do anything like that!
Choice. The problem is choice.
The first Matrix I designed was quite naturally perfect. It was a work of art, flawless, sublime, a triumph equaled only by its monumental failure. The inevitability of its doom is apparent to me now as a consequence of the imperfection inherent in every human being. Thus I redesigned it, based on your history, to more accurately reflect the varying grotesqueries of your nature. However, I was again frustrated by failure. I have since come to understand that the answer eluded me because it required a lesser mind, or perhaps a mind less bound by the parameters of perfection. Thus the answer was stumbled upon by another, an intuitive program, initially created to investigate certain aspects of the human psyche. If I am the father of the Matrix, she would undoubtedly be its mother.
The Oracle.
Please. As I was saying, she stumbled upon a solution whereby nearly 99% of all test subjects accepted the program as long as they were given a choice, even if they were only aware of the choice at a near unconscious level. While this answer functioned, it was obviously fundamentally flawed, thus creating the otherwise contradictory systemic anomaly that, if left unchecked, might threaten the system itself. Ergo, those that refuse the program, while a minority, if unchecked, would constitute an escalating probability of disaster. The function of the one is now to return to the source, allowing a temporary dissemination of the code you carry, reinserting the prime program. After which you will be required to select from the Matrix 23 individuals, 16 female, 7 male, to rebuild Zion. Failure to comply with this process will result in a cataclysmic system crash, killing everyone connected to the Matrix, which, coupled with the extermination of Zion, will ultimately result in the extinction of the entire human race.
You won't let it happen. You can't. You need human beings to survive.
There are levels of survival we are prepared to accept. However, the relevant issue is whether or not you are ready to accept the responsibility for the death of every human being in this world. It is interesting reading your reactions. Your 5 predecessors were, by design, based on a similar predication, a contingent affirmation that was meant to create a profound attachment to the rest of your species, facilitating the function of the one. While the others experienced this in a very general way, your experience is far more specific, vis-a-vis love.
Trinity.
Apropos, she entered the Matrix to save your life at the cost of her own.
No.
Which brings us at last to the moment of truth, wherein the fundamental flaw is ultimately expressed and the anomaly revealed as both beginning and end. There are 2 doors. The door to your right leads to the source and the salvation of Zion. The door to your left leads back to the Matrix, to her and to the end of your species. As you adequately put, The problem is choice. But we already know what you are going to do, don't we? Already I can see the chain reaction. The chemical precursors that signal the onset of an emotion designed specifically to overwhelm logic and reason. An emotion that is already blinding you from the simple and obvious truth. She is going to die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Hope. It is the quintessential human delusion, simultaneously the source of your greatest strength and your greatest weakness.
If I were you, I would hope that we don't meet again.
We won't.
Hey, you epic being, welcome. Thank you as always for being here. It's Andre Hodge, Infinite Potential Healing, 7 of Truth with you once more. So I hope this finds you well, wherever you are, maybe in the world, in this epic time to be human on Earth. Lucky us, hey! So what I'm going to do is offer you Recalibration to a New Energetic Reality Part 13. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it. Something to do with a victory on the MultiD front, and relative to the spiritual no man's land, progress in overcoming that. And I've been working pretty hard behind the scenes with some allies and stuff like that, and had a unique scenario where one person I know is going through a lot, and so we've worked very hard together, and I've been very proactive and consistent with them and stuff. And for me, what I usually do is try and invest in everyone that comes through, and some pretty amazing beings out there. I've invested proactively with them as well over the years to try and get progress and work out what the F is going on here, right? Because it hasn't been adding up, and no matter what we go into in the spiritual community and all that sort of stuff, the bigger picture of what rolls on, it seems organized, even though it's quite abstract and big scale, and we're all finding ourselves in it and reacting to what's going on and stuff like that. So one of my things has been, okay, this is an interesting problem. What's going on? And then once you get the context of what's going on, how do we forge a solution in it and stuff like that? So what I'm about is working that out and imparting it to everyone else, whoever may come through, to at least have the data and the coordinates and the mechanics, ideally, that will help you get through it. And I've been doing that for a number of years now. If you see me stop and pause and stuff like that, I'm probably dealing with some mosquitoes because they're on the hunt at the moment, that's for sure. So we've actually got some nice weather. I did a short update part 1, and I got absolutely soaked from being smashed by the rain, right? So I'm going to try and do some short ones like that here and there. I've got some really cool parts. Ideally, I like doing the videos like this, big and in-depth, that have a lot of components to be a good reference of progress and stuff like that. And that I'll try and see what happens with doing some shorts like those updates and stuff, because with what I was getting into is working very hard with an ally out there and stuff like that. So shout out to them and all of you guys that I haven't dealt with for a while. If I haven't been in touch with you lately and stuff like that, I'm just still doing me. I'm the same being that I've always been. And I think if there's a distortion or a perception that I might be going through stuff or corrupt and stuff, it's probably because I'm making really good progress, and there's a variable out there that wants that to be felt, sort of thing. And so I would just say, I'm just the same being I've always been and stuff like that, pushing on and working out what a lot of these frackers out there are doing, and we've busted a lot and stuff. So what I'm going to share today is a big variable in the progress that we've made, and I sort of touched on it last week, but I got rained on. And I just broached a little bit because I thought I'd have about 15-20 minutes, but I didn't. And so I enjoyed releasing that because it was just funny, right? Because ideally I'm pretty consistent and stuff like that. So it was just funny after all the years that I've done this in the same location and stuff. I just got really, absolutely, totally saturated. So what the main part of this release will be about, extending what I said in the last release and contributing to the momentum I've been offering in the recent releases, going back a couple of releases. Violation is our asset and stuff like that. So what I might do is just show you some images up front, giving the overview of things and the progress where we're at and what I was involved with, say, one particular person on many occasions to trial and error and see what was going on, right? So I'm just going to get into the images quick. So this is a image that I've put together over many years relative to what I call the awareness journey and the challenges in it and the ups and downs we all go through and stuff like that, and how we're sort of in a 3D 5 sense construct here sort of thing, but the reality is we're vaster than that, right? And the thing is, we're born into a white fresh memory sort of thing, and we have no concept of thing, and then there's all the education system to fit us into this world and all that sort of stuff, and probably like me, you probably had some instance of trauma in the past that made you reflect and review everything, and things didn't add up, and that's maybe the foundation for you to launch into all this. And even though formulating the linguistics to explain it is very difficult, right? But you just have a sense of things, and you sort of have a subtlety of appreciating things and not satisfied with what you've achieved out of this world and stuff. So perhaps spirituality is like a partnership in that journey of yours, or it's a foundation sort of like me, and then you're not satisfied with stuff, and then you go off and explore a lot of things and gain some input. Then you might go through ups and downs and stuff and realize a lot of stuff, and you get to a certain level where, you know, you could be a potential threat and all that sort of stuff, and then you realize, you know, there's not positive variables out there, like I said. So yeah, this is probably a metaphor of all of us, but reaching those multi-dimensional levels, it's quite unfamiliar and have no reference for it and stuff. So ideally, all the content and all, you know, if you've invested in my sovereignty declarations over the years, and particularly version 5 now, or come through with sessions and stuff to help clear out the energy hygiene issues and stuff, it's all been very beneficial experience and investment for you to gain your own appreciation of this, and you see your own journey. Like, this might be mine or someone I dealt with, but it's a pretty consistent theme with everyone, alright? So the long story short is, we've worked out a lot of the dimensional mechanics, and I've talked about that a lot in the past, and it's all in my sovereignty declaration. You know, most people accept the 3D 5 sense, and I just feel a lot of people are just so depleted. They're just reacting to stuff, and, you know, if you gain new perspectives, it's to integrate them, it's you have to have a lot of energy to change a lot of perspectives on things and stuff, and people just don't have the energy in there. It's an interesting world, and I'll probably talk about that more in a money theme that I started earlier in the year. But ideally, out of all this complexity and the insanity of things going on, there should be a very simple and elegant solution to once we gain all the context, and that's what I've been about, right? And all that I do and offer is about that, to help you as an individual get through it. And then, like I talked about, the violation is an asset, and I'll show you those images in a little bit. But yeah, this is one I've used many times, and it's in the bottom of my sovereignty declarations and stuff, so you can see it and get more appreciation of it. But there's a lot of variables out there that we thought we could trust, and, you know, there's a lot of support given to them, and it's quite ironic that a lot of the support actually probably directs a lot of people to the negative things, and that's where I've come to the conclusion that in myself, probably a lot of the spiritual concepts that are offered are actually counterintelligence sort of stuff to actually hijack the awareness of people, to lead them down false paths and set them up for failure, that isn't a threat to what's been rolled out, right? And that might be quite harsh to hear, but at least someone is saying it to actually discern it all. And ideally, if you're being violated, then you can employ it, and violation is your asset, and see what happens and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people are trying to do their best, but they follow and accept concepts that are out there that don't add up, sort of thing, but they don't have the fortitude or the will or anything like that to forge an original concept, a bit like what I've been doing, right? It's based on a lot of people, but after many years of employing them that didn't work, and then having to forge the new territory that I've sort of offered, right? So I hope this all helps, and this sort of sums up your journey and why you might find me out of all that, because I'm not usually the first choice for most people, and they go through a lot of other people. And if you're lucky to find me, because I'm very fortunate, it's like when people come through, it's like Christmas for me, and like, how did you find me? And they've all gone through all this stuff, and ideally I've got the solution for them to help take them a lot further, especially with the entities and the energy hygiene stuff, which is one of my focuses, right? But I'm just going to move on. So we'll just start with these images first, right? Because it relates to this working with one person and working with them with other people and stuff, doing GSF sort of stuff, where we're linked up to do sessions on people and stuff, right? To really clobber a lot of the big scale influences, which this recalibration to new energetic reality is offering one main one, and I'll see what I get into relative to a lot of the other stuff. I've got a lot of homework of going through maybe 20 or 30 hours of mission sort of stuff to get all the things we've done, right? But and a lot on the AI, right? And I don't know if I'll say it here, but I might do a short relative to AI, what we've worked out. There's obviously a lot to say about that, right? But this is the first of two images I introduced a couple of videos ago about violation is our asset. Because what I've come to appreciate, there's a pattern of the violation sort of stuff going on with people. And so I might be dealing with you as an individual, but there's this whole many variables. If you go through the sovereignty declaration, there's so much stuff there, right? And this is the mechanics I sort of appreciate. A violation is your asset. So karma hasn't been really wired correctly. In many instances we found that karma in the universe was wired opposite. So the invaders would do negative stuff, for instance, and then we would get the negative consequence of their actions, and they wouldn't feel any consequence, right? So we had to go back to source and pure source and wire it correctly, because we worked out the source code was corrupted from the origin point of our universe birth, right? Where negative forces from other universes came and corrupted the source code from the get-go. So we had to go and restore it from this corrupted to the original sort of thing, right? Because we have the corruption in us, which is an asset, right? So the logic in a banking system is they issue a loan, right? It's an asset on their books because you've got to repay it, right? So if we take karma as that sort of mechanics, right? So if you've been violated, then the violators out there, they owe you, right? So this is where it's very important to understand the karma mechanics and the resolution going on, right? And a lot of the variables out there haven't been aligned to source, so they're invaders from another universe, so they haven't had to accommodate the laws here, which made them able to avoid the consequence of the stuff, which we've forced all that, right? And appreciate all this. So then it's a matter of like all the stuff in all your DNA and all the lineages and all your lives and all that sort of stuff. We've each got an enormous bank of karma that we have the opportunity to get resolution for, all right? And that's where it's, it's been really tough for me and all that sort of stuff, but I love it, all right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going sort of thing. And I come from Aussie, like I grew up playing football in 80s playgrounds, which are battlegrounds, right? So this is a very important concept to appreciate, right? And then if you understand it and you engage it, like it's like a defense, right? They'll find easier prey sort of thing. But this is the cool thing, that relative to violation is our asset, right? And I'm going to show you the next image. So the very cool thing about this mechanics is, if you've been violated by something and everything, all the different variables out there, right? There's a potential that that mechanics is being used to violate other people, right? And these people might never even engage spirituality or anything like this, right? So they're completely vulnerable to this and totally unable to free themselves, sort of thing, right? So what we're able to do is, violation is our asset. We're able to call that debt, the variable, relative to the mechanics that they're using, right? On each violative method, right? So what that means is we can void that technology that they're using, that method and stuff, to make it void in the universe, sort of thing. And so what that does, it anyone else being violated that way, right, has the potential to gain a lot of relief and freedom from that, right? So imagine all the different ways and all the different methods out there. The thing is, as vast as the unknown is, right, and I might show you the unknown image because it's consistent, we're still going into the unknown, discovering all this. There has to be a finite number of ways to do this, and if we void them all, and that's why my sovereignty declaration has 5 different versions, like the short to the complete, the full, the basic, and the brief. It's so encompassing of so many things, because you as an individual, I make no assumptions in my healing and all that I say, and the declaration, right? He agrees. And because I make no assumptions, because the consistent thing is, like, when I deal with these highly aware people, they got blind spots and stuff has got in, and if I wasn't so thorough and the vista of the range of things I do, it wouldn't be able to clear the people, sort of thing, right? So if you appreciate that, then there's so much potential in people, right, that they haven't tapped into, because they don't even know to define their sovereignty and call out all this stuff to get the resolution, right? So that's why it's, it hasn't added up and it's been challenging, and you do this and there's no such thing as respecting free will. It's like a free-for-all violation going on, and the odds have been very much stacked against us, but that's where it's just like you and all of us here now are so epic, and that's why I say we're epic, because we've endured all this with such a disadvantage, right? So I just really want to instill this into you and offer it to hopefully make it a bit clearer, and then, if you're a new individual that's come to find me, then you're like, holy crap, and you're just feeling what I'm saying, right? So then you go to work and be very thorough with yourself. But I'm just going to move on. So this is exploring the unknown, and it's still been a consistent variable of there's so much we don't know that's going on, and it's been a trial and error to just get to this point, right? And what I'm going to be talking today is about a massive discovery into that, to actually make a lot of progress, right? Just appreciate we're still the vastness of the unknown compared to what we know. We have to be very humble to what we don't know, right? And be vigilant to discovery still, right? But ideally, since I introduced this concept to now, we've made a lot of progress and it's a lot easier, but the world is a lot more challenging as well, right? So it's just fascinating. They've raised the bar on survival in society with introducing the net zero Green Deal, which is creating astronomical energy costs, which trickle through to society to create massive inflation, and then the immigration overload of society in the West, which is forced up prices and limited resources like housing and stuff like that, and it's just really distracting, particularly the middle class, right? And that's where, like me, it's just like all or nothing now, right? There's so much distraction and a lot of people being lost along the way and stuff like that. It's just, who else is there, right? That's where I'm saying, like, the spiritual and alternate community, which I audit very thoroughly in my declaration and in every healing I do and stuff. It's just, we have to be willing to discern everything and everyone, and particularly, like I talk about, with the people you deal with, inquire about their level of energy hygiene. What do they do with energy hygiene? What dimensional level are they working with? And if they're working with guides, who are the guides, right? We, early 2024, we worked out that everyone at birth was given a very negative guide to basically spy on everyone and stuff. And we bust that, but a lot of this stuff gets reanimated and people get taken out and stuff, right? So I'm just going to move on. So over the last couple of years, one of the ways I've tried to translate all of this, right, with all the dimensional levels going from 3D 5 cents to 11.5D, 12D, and 15D, which was Ashiana's sort of stuff, and then 22D, which is one of the things we engaged last year, and now 1000D, because it's just like, let's go vast and be superior to everything else that's not aligned to being organic from our universe and pure source, right? So what we've found is our strength is we can go vast, and we are organic in our sourcing of energy, right? So things that aren't organic to our universe need energy from an external source, like harvesting from us and all that sort of stuff, right? So that means that we've got the endurance, right? They need to source it from external, which are our strengths, right? So I engage 1000D, and we've got a lot of allies at very high level that we can work with in the pure source alliance structure, right? But one of the things for what I've been able to translate all this to make it quite simple, whether you believe in the guides or in all that, that's cool, right? Discern it, see what happens and all that sort of stuff. But what I've translated all of this into is this simple concept called the spiritual no man's land, right? Because a lot of the getting through the awareness journey is overcoming this void area. I just remember the Lord of the Rings going through that swamp area. I think it was the second one. So the invader aspect, they're limited to a sort of range that they can operate. So they keep us in the 3D 5 sense, so they're superior to us, right? So part of this is aligning to our superiority, which is beyond that, and overcoming this spiritual no man's land, right? So I'm just going to move on to the next image, which is a different representation of this, right? So this is an image I offered earlier in this year, just to simplify that and make it a bit more of a different visual representation, just block images and stuff. So ideally in a perfect universe, right, without invaders and all that sort of stuff, there wouldn't be that red insert, right? So what they've done is they've inserted themselves as our authority on the dimensional, multi-dimensional level, talents and all that sort of stuff, right, to create this divide from our totality, which is superior to them, right? So it's not ideal that this is going on and stuff, but we've never known this, right? And particularly, say, me and my journey and all the people I've dealt with who present themselves as very intuitively superior and stuff, what it's found out is that many of them are lying to all this, right? Derailing us and not giving us the right advice and messing with us on the MultiD, which we've really busted of late, right? So I'm just going to move on, but this is just an effort to give you a different representation of what I'm going to talk about in the next few images that I've used before, but I've got a couple new ones, right? So this is another representation of the awareness journey of traversing the spiritual no man's land, right? So what it's been like is we get upgrades and awareness and expansions, and then we might go through things, and we're vulnerable because we're in new territory, and then things happen and stuff, right? Because the new level awareness is the unknown, so we're vulnerable potentially because we don't know all the things that are going on, right? So you make progress and you go through things, and then you retreat and you analyze and process it all, and then you work things out, potentially get healing, and then you go further and all this sort of stuff. So this is the challenges of being human on this world, right? And you know, the multi-dimensional isn't really accepted, but I did Multi-Dimensional Madness Part 14 a bit earlier, like 3 or 4 months ago. And that I offered a clip that I remember from Bruce Cathy from 2011, where he talked about the variable in society that were working at 15D back in the late 1960s, right? So just because it's not accepted in society doesn't mean all this stuff isn't what is going on. So it's a matter of us to be brave and be open to the vastness of what's going on and accept it and go into it and see what happens, right? So it's challenging to go into the unknown, into the multi-D, because it's like you might use the intellect to become very aware in the 3D, but you've actually got to let that go and go into feeling and the intent and subtleties and all that. And it's a foreign language sort of thing, like the abstract reality. I could talk about Salvador Dali, like the abstract nature of reality. It's the multi-D is abstract to the 3D, and it takes a different appreciation of things, right? Some people are very multi-D and they struggle with the 3D, right? I know a lot of people like that, and I try and help bridge that, right? But I'm just offering like the challenges of being here and how epic you are for just overcoming and dealing with this and doing your best in it, right? But ideally, like, we've made a lot of progress, and what I was saying about violation is the asset, and the more people that do it, the more we take them apart and make this a lot clearer for everyone else, right? So I'm just going to move on. When I originally offered this, it was relative to say how you can see me as an ally in your journey with healing, and it's not just me, it's all the stuff out there, and ideally I just give you the information that you don't need healing and stuff like that, right? But I would invite just to be thorough. But say if you as an individual were coming through to me and stuff like that, what I was aiming to do was just clear you to the level and make progress in this. And if you go into the unknown, you get smashed and all this sort of stuff, then you fall back and I help you get through and all this sort of stuff, right? So it's just, and this is how all healers should be for you. And if you go in to learn healing and it helps you to maintain yourself to get through this yourself and all that, I've highly recommended doing pranic healing that I did many years ago, and it gave me a real ally into realizing I could maintain myself. And the energy hygiene stuff that I said is basically, it's not adding anything to you, it's just clearing out the gunk of this world. Just imagine it's like a swimming under the ocean with all the sea urchins and jellyfish and octopus and all that sort of stuff, right? And that's a bit like the metaphor of the multi-D with all the energy hygiene stuff. If it's not done deliberately, it's just organic out there. So if you clear out those things from you, and then the byproduct is you're just clear, then it should be a lot easier to go through this and formulate and access your intuitive abilities and stuff, right? But that's just another representation of the journey through the spiritual no man's land, right? So what I'm going to show is a couple new ones of what we discovered when I was dealing with someone very, very epic that I know, right? So this is a new one I've done, expanding that spiritual no man's land concept. It might be a bit hard to see in this. And I've got green lines, one that comes from here first, and then the return, right? So the metaphor is, this is like, say, you as an individual engaging your intuitive potential, 1000D sort of stuff, and I just got up to the 22D, but basically beyond that it seems like it's pretty good, right? But I just go, let's go large, be vast, it's far superior to anything going on, right? Or it's like engaging me for a session when we do it, particularly because in my pranics now I do an audit that's very thorough, right, to really clobber this, whatever's in between in the awareness journey and spiritual no man's land sort of stuff, right? I've just got the red line for like a barrier. It's like that. Spiritual no man's land, the 3D with the insert sort of stuff, right? There's a lot of effort to limit us. If we pop up and we get beyond that, then might set off technology in us or alarms and stuff like that to have a consequence, and then you're in the spiritual war that we're in, right? So this metaphor is, say, if you engage your intuitive potential, our infinite potential, right? If we're aligning with that superiority that we of our universe have, right? Then ideally what should happen is, if you do engage that, then you're aligned, right? It's like your oversoul or your total self that's vaster than what we are. And the big effort going on, without most people knowing, is that divide to keep us limited and disconnected from our totality. which is superior to be able to overcome everything going on, right? And so what's been going on, I'm always really proactive with people, and all the people that are close to me, I constantly do sessions and healing, because it's not about me making money or anything like that. It's like me as a practitioner being willing to do it and being ready to do it 24/7, and that's why I do long sessions overnight and stuff like that. And I live in that level, and it's not an end. I don't have to level up for anything. It's just how I live, and that's why I can do the types of sessions I do. And it's like the longer sessions are about holding space for people and giving them a relative. I'm a variable relative to this MultiD technology, and say if you're in my field, it's an ally to help overcome a lot of this stuff in the spiritual no man's land. It's just always really fascinating what, without the pressure of time, what reveals itself. And when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that long, right? It's just really awesome. It just feels very nourishing and stuff. And then you might have repair to go on once you get the energy back and all the stuff cleared out, and then your body kicks into the repair and stuff. But it's just always fascinating. And so all the people over the years that I've known, I've always been proactive. Like, if we're going to interact, let's just do a session. Let's do a pranic and let's see what's there, and let's get all the shit out of the way. Mozzies are on the hunt, right? So if I'm shaking and all that sort of stuff, or you think like there's that's where I'm coming back, because I'm just trying to not get freaking eaten alive here. But so over the years I've dealt with a lot of people, and I've been proactive, and I'm always generous and stuff like that, right? And ideally, once I get people clear, then they want to be on the front line to defend this, but that hasn't been the case. And I've invested in a lot of people and stuff like that, and a lot turn on me and all that, because they're all targeted and stuff, and the variables that we've dealt with and all that, they're very good at what they do, like to hammer us all and stuff like that. And a lot of people, they might be in traumatic situations and they want to know all this stuff, and then once they get clear, they go back to life and all that, and that's all cool, right? And that's where I've just found myself just holding the line on this stuff, and backed into the corner, just holding it and defending Earth and healing Earth and all that sort of stuff, and Source and all that. So it's like we have the superiority, but we've just got to engage it, right? So I feel like over all the years I've gotten very, very confident in the mechanics and stuff, and just employing it. It's a bit like that MultiD thing. If you listen to the intro that I do with the clips of all those people, there's one of them, he talks about the intent, alright? And to me, the intent is like imagine a tree trunk, it's the spine, you know, like the trunk itself of a tree. So I like engaging that MultiD, it's like you have the intent, you're working at 1000D sort of thing, and you're working with the allies and aligned to pure source. You just hold that intent, and then you do your pranic and stuff like that. It's very interesting what happens, right? How much you get clear and all that sort of stuff, right? So I would just say, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, all the mechanics and employing them, it's been many years now, and it's very solid and very confident in them and stuff. So say when I deal with people and all that, it's always very interesting what happens, and there is a war out there, and you might become very aware, and you're not used to that awareness, or you actually get very clear and it's very unfamiliar, and you don't like it. You don't actually like being clear, so you go and smash yourself or get messed up, and just to go back in that familiar space, because it feels off, because it is so clear, and you're not used to not being messed by entities and stuff, right? But I shared about the unknown as well, right? Like, we're still got to be humble to what we don't know. And so these last few months have been different strategy, and instead of going with different people here, there, and everywhere and stuff, it's more like just being a consistent investment into, say, one person that's very aware, and in a lot of stuff that's going on, which is diabolical. So it's like this shit ain't happening on my watch. So I'm being very proactive with this individual, and it's just very interesting, because they might get smashed, just a fragment of themselves, and then I do my thing and get them back pretty quick, right? And just we analyze what happened, we explore it, and then we go and do the violation is our asset sort of stuff. So we go and clear a lot of stuff, right? So it's very purposeful, and it's very beneficial, and we've pushed ahead a lot, right, in several months. And it's also brought about a lot of pushback and stuff like that, and I could get into that, but I'm not, right? But just with all the entanglements and the variables and what we're aware of and stuff, to say I would do a healing on them, and then it would come back and I'd reanimate them and sort of thing, and it'd be like, that's what it feels like. It just always feels good when you're clear, right? And especially being messed with and that. Like I do pranic on myself all the time, and some days I wake up, it's like, what? I got hit by an energetic Mack truck overnight, right? And it's like, I feel like I'm smashed. It's like, am I going to survive this day? And I just do pranic on myself, and it's just like, I might get a few points, and it's like, there it is, like just something cleared, and it's just, you get all the energy back and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, I said last year, about this time last year, that I really had to trust my mechanics to anchor it, like with that intent variable. So it's like, I do this with this individual and we get them back, and it's like, then stuff happens and we're like, what the F is going on? And it's like, it's not really working all the time and stuff like that. So over many months we've chipped away, and just because it's that one variable and us together sort of thing, it's been able to be very productive on identifying the subtleties that are going on and stuff like that. So the release I had last week, it was trying to introduce what we did, and I didn't have time, or I didn't even know how to describe these in images, right? I spent most of my afternoon, that's why it's quite late. Lucky we're in summer and the sun's up late, right? And you might not be able to see it perfectly, and I should have done darker, and I might update this. I just took good photos with good images and good light and stuff, and I didn't want to mess with it. But with that, keeping the variables very limited by it just being us two, and knowing what's going on with them and just checking, and then I go through my thorough mechanics, which is very broad, and make no assumptions, and we just discover things all the time, and then we work out things, and then we go back and work out what's going on, right? So this particular one is about the progress of overcoming the spiritual no man's land. So I'm going to get into the next image, which shows what we worked out, because it's massive, right? So this is another thorough representation of what I just showed you there, and I made the green lines a bit darker so you can see through, right? What this one contains is a lot more data in the spiritual no man's land, right? And this is the massive breakthrough that we worked out last week. So this video is going to all different levels of the audience, right? Some of you might think you're not aware and all this sort of stuff, and there's some very aware people out there that are battling in their own journey, and they've managed to find me and stuff. So this is probably mainly aimed at the MultiD people that are able to perceive this, because this was so subtle. It took months of us to discover this. It was just by us really chipping away and doing something, staying consistent, and then doing an analysis of what was going on, and reflect on it and tune in and see what was going on, alright? So what we found is, long story short, is I was doing my thing and stuff like that, and I'm really good at getting people back in the 3D, right? With all this stuff going on, I can just reanimate them and stuff. And then it's like engaging the 1000D pure source superiority and what's going on with that and stuff, right? So what we found, and this is the ally, they deserve the credit, because we were working so hard, and it was like, I was going, because I got them to do stuff on me, and I know they're very multi-dimensional, and I'm really good at sensing things and stuff. And it's not about criticism or anything. It was like, look, I know you can do this, but I'm not feeling the impact, because I don't feel the improvement and stuff like that. And with that sort of mathematical equations, it allowed them to get the coordinates to go and look at these things, right? So it's not about criticism, it's about getting the truth and finding out what's going on, right? And this is the massive thing. Because I've taught this and introduced these concepts, it's like they appreciate them as a reference to focus on it, right? So what this person, and they deserve all the credit, right, worked out is going on many dimensional levels. Like, just imagine this is everything like from 5 to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe up to 15, right? At each dimensional level, right, there was like this spider web stuff right? And what the spiderweb stuff was doing was filtering out our superiority to get back to us, right? So say we might go out there, engage that stuff, but what was coming back was only 15%, right? So do you think we're being violated by allowing by preventing our totality of being engaged? Sure. So we went and clobbered that, right? And just imagine like the invader, all that sort of stuff, were benefiting from it. And I would say that they had a way to get through it up to their level to have superiority here. And also it was probably blocking upgrades like codes and talents and stuff like that, as well as energy and benefit and all that sort of stuff, right? So it was like a massive like, oh my freaking god sort of stuff, right? That we'd been dealing with this handicap all along, and so we cleared that out. And so what I got this person to do was take all my mechanics and reapply it to me for my whole journey, right, of all the violations that have been going on since I started and all the people and all that sort of stuff. And it cleared a lot, right? And so it's been really tough for the last few months, and it was like, this is a massive breakthrough. And it's like when you go through those potentials that are brewing, there's, if you remember that other image, I might just show it quick, right? When you're going through this, it's like you make progress and then the unknown kicks in because maybe you're about to hit a next level and break down something, so the resistance is really massive at that massive like breakthrough moment, right? I could go back to the unknown image of, you make progress and then you get hit and you don't know what's coming at you and stuff, right? So maybe I'll just show you that quick to help right now, right? So it's a bit like that one, where you're chipping away and then you start being a threat to the team fracker and then they go at you and you don't know what's going on, right? That one as well. So yeah, just chipping away at what we worked out, right? So I'll just go back to it. So what we both did is we reflected over everything we've done and then reapplied it with this, right? And it did have significant improvement on things, and that's why it's probably been a bit rough, and maybe you've been a threat because you've got all the violation is your asset sort of stuff, which I'll just go back to that, right, in a sec. But yeah, I hope this helps, right? It helps you to realize the disadvantage we've had and why it's been so tough, and it's probably tough on levels we still don't know, right? But we just feel like we had a really massive victory because we worked hard together for many months and a lot was brewing. And by this dedication to like being clear and working things out, we worked this out, and it was like a massive breakthrough because then we reapplied everything that really, really worked, right? This is just a reference point of recalibration to a new energetic reality, which this theme is about, because it is truly a new energetic reality from my perspective and what we've found since then, alright? So if you've done the sovereignty declaration, then perhaps like the violation is our asset hasn't worked, and injustice anywhere, injustice everywhere sort of stuff, to take apart the mechanics that we're up against, alright? So I'll just go back to that image. So if you as an individual feel like you've done this stuff in the past and it hasn't worked, then potentially this hindrance by the invasion forces and invasion aligned forces has been applied to prevent the full effect of what you've been able to do, right? With all what bank might be new, if that makes sense, right? So I'll show you the other image quick. So perhaps with what we achieved in clearing up the reality mechanics, right, potentially all that hasn't worked in the past, you can employ it now just by hearing this. It might be just enough with all the mechanics and the linguistics I offer that you just like implement it now with your intent, right, of all that you've done. Maybe if you've had sessions, go re-listen to them and stuff like that, or employ the sovereignty declaration work with it again, see what happens, right? But yeah, I hope this offers, a reference of the mechanics that we've been up against without knowing it, and ideally this helps us going forward and keep chipping away and make progress, right? Just another reminder to everyone is just keep being thorough, enjoy employing work ethic into your spiritual energy hygiene and sovereignty and stuff like that, because what might happen is you get aha moments and see negative variables that you've been working with and stuff like that, and we've clobbered them and stuff. It's funny. We just bust them and stuff like that. What we do is like some really nasty stuff, right, going on, and we just upload all the stuff we worked out to like a multiverse news network update, like a big update of this fracker is doing all this to you and all this other stuff. We let the whole multiverse know what these frackers are doing, right? Every time we bust them, we just send them to universal multiverse jumbotrons for everyone to watch, right? But I would just say, like, see how you go with this, and maybe it gives you a new perspective on things and stuff, or it helps you get aha moments and see what's good and what's not out there and stuff, instead of just being reference points that are just data points out there, right? Because over this last several months, with someone very, very aware, it's a consistent thing is the hacks are going on, and then there's blind spots, so you don't know the threats and stuff that is constantly going on. So this Recalibration to New Energetic Reality Part 13 is offering on many levels to the different levels of audience out there and stuff. And so especially the highly aware, it's very challenging for those guys. Don't think it's like a blessing, it's tough, right? So just be thorough and engage a work ethic in all this. It's not something you can just breeze through, and be thorough, right? And those of you out there with the awareness to see all this, go and check it and see and measure it before and after, and then re-employ everything you've done, sort of thing and stuff, and see what you can call out and clobber and stuff, right? So coming to the end of the video, and I've got a lot to say and stuff like that. We worked out a lot of other things and had interesting experiences with other people. So instead of just me and this person, it'd be like two and another person. We go and see all the violations going on to them, and we did a lot of stuff over the last few months. So what I want to do is just review them and stuff. I might release like those update shorts sort of things, so it's just like one variable and stuff, and a bit easier to digest, and ideally that pattern recognition stuff helps you to absorb everything and then see through everything going on. But it's really good to be here with you guys, and I'm going to round it out now. So I thank you for all that you've had to do and all you've overcome and what you've discovered and contributed and all that sort of stuff. And I hope how it's been in this recent era hasn't been too hard and stuff like that. And I don't know where things are going. It was like, before I did this video, when I woke up, I found a really awesome Tiesto set, and I was like, yeah, I was fired up. And then I went and listened to some Sabrina Wallace stuff, and it's like, holy shit, like terrifying, all right? And I don't know where all this is going to go, but the way I feel is like we're very fortunate to be here now with this window to gain awareness. Like before there was the internet, even the last 10 years or 15 years, you couldn't connect to people in different geographical regions and stuff. We're able to find each other and stuff like that. So I hope with all I offer and all that I share with you and all the mechanics or offerings that I can help with and stuff, that it's been an enormous ally for you to go from this point to vastly more aware in your awareness journey, right? So I'm always optimistic because there's so much untapped potential with everyone out there and stuff, but I really think it's going to need a core group like us to really forge that little window for people to find their own potential and stuff like that, because there's definitely forces out there that are very organized and very, in many levels, have the perception of superiority, but we, I feel, do have that superiority. And what we are able to achieve in this last few weeks that I shared in this, I really hope it is a next level up of us being able to achieve that and engage that superiority that I feel we have, right? But we're going to have to see it, and it'll be up to you as an individual to employ it and see where you go and be an example for everyone else, right? But I really thank you for being here and allowing me on any level throughout the years to be a part of your journey, and we're just going to have to see how this goes, all right? So all the best, take care, and keep being lit, all right? Keep being epic, and never forget that even though this world might do everything to quash that in you, you've got to own it inside, all right? So take care, guys. Until the next time, the Brat from Down Under out.
Heading for the city lights, 975. We're sharing each other, mirrors and father. Scent of lemon drips from your eyes. We are the people that rule the world, fostering in every boy and girl. Rejoicing in the world, take me now. We can
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.